Hello, everybody, and welcome to Left Hand, Right Brain. I hope this podcast finds you well, and I know I say it every episode, but I say because you likes and subscribes, your rates and reviews, appreciate. And if you like what you're hearing on this Left Hand, Right Brain podcast, you're probably like all the other podcasts under the Left Hand, Right Brain, such as Let's Get Drunk and Talk About Your Wedding with host Jen and Mel. You can find that on YouTube now or wherever you get your podcasts, as well as Help Me, I'm Scared, another podcast about horror films with Katie Bowman. That one's a little spookier, but we're moving into the spooky season here, and I think you'll enjoy it, dear listener. All those available wherever the podcast. Still working on the website. Haven't got it done yet. Anyway, moving on. Okay, that brings us to this week's episode, which is with returning guest, LHRB All-Star, the OG Left Hand Right Brain guest, Royce Roeswood. You know him. You love him. He's a theater artist. He's an improviser, actor, writer. He went by the nom de plume Simon Finchley, or is this Simon Finchley? Simon Finchley. Yeah. He wrote a book under that called The Doom World of Milagro, if you want to check that out. We talked a little bit on the pod how he's going to get rid of the nom de plume and start going by his regular name. We get into the creative stuff, Creative Act, because we're here to talk about The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. It's The Creative Act, A Way of Being, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. This book has been in my backpack for, the last 6 months maybe. So I heard him talking about it on some podcasts, pre-ordered it probably about a year ago when I heard him on Rogan. I really enjoyed Rick Rubin on there. I've sought out some other podcasts, him talking about art and creativity. I really enjoyed that a lot. So when the book came out, I got it immediately, listened to it, loved it, obviously. Lots of great words of wisdom, pieces of advice in here for creatives of all types. So obviously I wanted to get my creative muse in real life, Royce Roeswood, on. Wanted to get his thoughts on it. If you listen to the episode we did a couple months back, I gave him the book, told him to read it, and we talk about it on the pod. I'm going to keep these book reviews going, I think, because we even came up with another book I'm going to listen to on audio, and he's going to read in a physical copy, and then we'll do another review once he's done with that. But, Royce is busy. He's a dad of 2 now, and he's got to make his own living, do his own creative things, and so, it'll happen when it happens. Unless there's a big demand for these book reviews or audio book reviews, and I could do more. So, leave me a comment on YouTube, Apple, wherever you're listening to this or watching. So I loved getting Royce's insight on the book. I talk a little bit about the audio book as well, my experience listening to that. So you get a little bit of both worlds there. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Royce, for talking to me about it. If you want to check out Royce, in all his creative endeavors, you can find him on ragamancers.com is where he's got the links to everything. There's a link tree, Royce Roeswood as well. And then he's got his solo role-playing game YouTube channel called Science Fantasy Awesome. You should check out. He's putting all his improv and theater skills to use in this channel. So check it out. It's a fun watch if you're into board games. And even if you're not, very entertaining. Anyway, thank you so much, Royce, for being on. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm looking forward to the next book club. Okay, I'm done with the intro. Let's get to this week's podcast, part of Mile High Life, produced by Left Hand Right Brain Productions. So we have tried to record once already. Found out that there wasn't a memory card in one of the cameras. Thank goodness I figured it out. Yes. It's one of those kismet things.
Right, because I want everyone to be able to see me.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Behold my face.
If we'll be able to put what we did record in front, so I guess we'll say it again.
Sure.
Say it again, Royce.
What do you think? Oh, I brought your book back.
Well, I was making a reference to Play It Again, Sam.
Oh.
Something from Casablanca.
That's a deep cut. It's way
not
back.
A big cinephile, huh?
I mean, I'm familiar with Casablanca, but
not as familiar as me.
Maybe.
Well, we are here to talk about The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
We've both got it.
Yes. If members of the Brain Trust remember last time Royce was on, I gave him the book so we could talk about it specifically.
Continuity, and here it is. And then in the meantime, GD has bought.
Yeah, I bought it again because I also have the receipt in here.
Okay,
maybe that's what you're seeing.
The receipt is also.
I like to keep the receipts in them because it's like a timestamp. It's like, I got this in 2023. You know.
Oh. It's just like a reminder of like, I was going to read this and it was like 5 years ago.
I also keep them in my DVDs. So I can be like, I just remember because it was in the Wedding Crashers. And last time I opened it up, I was like, dang, I got this in 2006 or, whatever. Like, I don't know. It's just like a time and, it's like I bought it at 11:33. I wonder what I was doing at Walmart at 11:33. And
I was buying Wedding Crashers.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a fun for me.
It's a little mystery.
Yeah. I think it's nice. It's not even a mystery. It's a fun memory.
I guess so. I mean, yeah.
I love buying things.
Yes.
I mean, when people say what gets you up in the morning, when it's a payday for me, I get up way earlier. Even if I'm just going to the grocery store to buy groceries, the idea of buying things gets me up.
You are the kind of consumer that companies love. They're like, yes,
because I'll buy multiple copies and give it to friends, and
I'm definitely more in the like I avoid buying anything unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah, that's why if you don't want to keep that book, I will take it back and give it to someone else.
I will,
or if you want to keep it,
no, that's okay.
It's my gift to you, buddy.
I appreciate that. I'm going to pass it along. So that someone else can enjoy this.
We'll see.
I only have so much room.
Right, yeah, I know you went through a whole paring down thing when you were going to do your tiny home.
And once you do that, it's really hard to go back. It's really hard to be like, do I really want this in my life? I read it. It was great. If I wanted to read it again, I'll find another copy, release it back into the world.
Yeah, well, we're talking about being in the moment, being aware. Mm-hmm. Your awareness is pretty big. Something they talk about in the book. Is that something that you want to speak to?
Oh, sure.
Or what are your big takeaways? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, sure.
Let's get into it.
Sure. So, I mean, talking about awareness, he's talking about like sort of just taking everything in, right? Letting all of that sensory input, everything that happens kind of like become material, become fuel, right? Like anything, you never know where the idea is coming from, right? So like having that awareness, being open to that and letting it come in. Which is just sort of a mindset, right? It's just a sort of an approach.
Yeah, I mean, the opening quote is it's not about making art, it's about being in that state of being that makes art possible.
Right. Inevitable, right? Does
it
say inevitable?
Yeah, I mean, we could. I just read it on the last pod, so but we might as well see it again. The object isn't to make art; it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. By Robert Henry.
It might be French. It might be Henri, but Henry probably.
Thank you.
That sounds nice.
It sounds nice, yeah. Is it? I mean,
where art is just inevitably dropping out of you with every step.
Yeah, I mean, and he talks about artists or being an artist is a way of being in the world.
It certainly is. I think it's not. Yeah, it's a whole different approach to. I mean, it affects everything, right? Because you're not, even when you're not working on your stuff, right? You're thinking about stuff in the background, right? It's running on the back burner. And then you're always like, you never know in any of your interactions, in any of your whatever you're doing, like something might occur to you, right? It could happen at any time, you know? And it's like, well, I'm going to do this to have this experience. I mean, you don't even have to be that intentional. You're just doing stuff, and it's all. I mean, it just sort of it shapes everything. It just it reaches out and touches everything. I think. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, it is interesting. Like the ideas are out there. The muse has to find you working, kind of a thing. But also letting an idea be whatever it is, because it's so interesting how you went from acting, playwriting. Books to tarot cards. You made your own tarot card deck.
Yeah.
So it's just like we've done a radio play. So it's like, but you made that a radio play originally to be a one act.
It was originally for stage.
And I remember
Yeah.
you saying like, "Oh, this is what it was meant to be," or like maybe this is what it was meant to be.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And that was like something that stuck with me ever since you said it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad. And I think that's now thinking back on that. I think because it was about sweaters, right? It's about
Yeah, the
animate
four
sweaters.
Yeah.
And so I mean, if it wasn't
Our
going to be
Christmas radio play, everybody, the Christmas classic it's become.
Do you listen to it every Christmas?
I do.
It's great. I did go back and listen to it again not too long ago.
It's fun.
It is
right?
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's about sweaters, right? And so originally on the stage, right, the audience has to use their imagination,
Right.
but for
They
radio,
still might use their imagination.
exactly. But for radio, right, they're doing that anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
Theater of the mind.
there's less obstacles in the way of like, oh, that person is saying something that I'm looking at, but they're actually a sweater
They're
versus
representing a
this
sweater.
voice in my head, and now I'm imagining like you do with
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it just was waiting for that opportunity to you just never know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's something I've been trying to. They talk about it towards the end of the book, but
Mhm.
it's like not putting any pressure on these ideas, and that's something that's so hard for me.
yeah, they think
because I'm like, this has to make money. This has to be the thing that breaks me, so I can finally live this life of being an artist.
that is so tricky, and that's something that I'm dealing with right now. Of the money piece. Because Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this, right? Like,
yeah, in her book Big Magic,
it's like ideas are too precious and fragile to bear the weight of like having to
My
be
financial
someone's
burden.
yeah.
I need to buy 3 more books.
Yeah. And so, but also, like I have to be of two minds about it. I'll be like, yes, I would really love for this series that I'm working on to support me.
What's it called again?
Well, okay. Well, we'll talk about what I'm working on in a sec. Because it's all in flux.
Sure.
So, but
Doc Brown right there.
It's
all in flux, Marty.
It's all in flux. It's at capacity.
I would love to be your Michael J. Fox to your Doc Brown.
That would be. I just show up with like a crazy machine and be like, "We gotta go."
Yeah. I'm just like,
I had an idea.
And I'm like, you want to work out? But we gotta get our gains.
We do gotta get gains. Anyway, where was I? I don't even know.
Sorry, yeah. You're not putting pressure on your ideas.
Right. Because like, absolutely, because you just want the idea to be able to be what it is, right, and just be in its pure expression. And if you've got this exterior thing of like, oh, it has to make money, right? Then there's a certain element of quality, or whatever, of commerciality that it has to fulfill, right? And then you're like processing all of that while you're trying to create this thing. But at the same time, yes, I would love to be able to just for that to be my income, to be able to write all the time. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now, but I'm not making any money, right? So I would love that, but I'm, you kind of have to trick yourself. I guess I have to be like, yes, but I'm not thinking about that right now. Right now, I'm just letting this book what it is, be what it is. If I'm blessed enough that this is going to be able to bring a lot of money in my direction, I will be really, really grateful. But I have to do it just to let it be what it, like I have to bring it into the world.
Put that aside to bring.
Yeah, that's the promise I've made to this idea.
Wow,
I've promised this idea that I would bring it out into the world. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and everything else is extra. So if I get to the end of working on this series and getting it out and it doesn't hit and I can't make it work, then then the question becomes, okay, how can I continue to keep doing this in a way that is not a burden on my family, right?
Oh damn, even that extra thing,
right?
Also has to not be a burden on my family,
right? So like
every great artist is a huge burden on their family.
Oh man, they're horrible. They don't work. They're always depressed. They can only talk about like their thing, and they're getting distracted. Yeah,
he talks about some artists in this book that that his family just knows that every now and then, whenever he gets an idea, he gets up and he leaves, even if they're in the middle of Christmas dinner. If he has an idea, he's gonna get up and go to be in service to that idea.
Well, at least
I think it's Paul McCartney.
At least as a
I don't know why
writer, you can just like write it down. Like you can just have a notebook.
Yeah, I think he was talking about a musician.
Yeah, you'd have to go like work out the ding ding ding. Yeah.
The ding ding ding.
The ding dings. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
like-
a musician.
Yeah, you're not a musician. That's like the
That's
one creative
one of the
thing
things.
you don't do.
I mean, I know like a little bit of piano. I know a little ukulele,
Oh,
but I'm
okay.
not at a point where
Piano.
no, that has worked its way into like, I will make a
Obsessing your life.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, so
Where was I?
you made the promise to the idea, not be a
Mhm.
burden on your family.
you're taking some ideas and kind of putting them together. But yeah. So anyway, so I guess I mean I can talk about what I'm working on right now. So
Your book series.
yes. So
You're going back to it.
I'm
Because last time you said you were taking a break.
I was taking a break. So I wrote and self-published a novel during the pandemic. Came out in 2020,
Space pirate.
21. They're not in space, but there are pirates, there are robots, there are wizards.
What's the name?
It's called
That's what I was
it's called The Doomed World of Milagro.
Okay,
And I
thank
wrote it under a pen name, Simon Finchley.
Right.
Okay. And the intention was it came out and I was gonna jump right into writing the second book. And at that point, our second son had been born. So we have 2 boys. And it just
Congratulations. I guess I never said that.
Thank you.
Just
They're great. I love them. My other great project. Right.
my other great project.
yeah.
That is funny.
No, I
How
mean
are you
that's
molding their lives as an artist?
really very minimally. They are just sort of their own creatures, and I'm just sort
Oh,
of there to
interesting,
watch
yeah.
it. Yeah. That's really the case.
How can we make fatherhood into art? Let's just put that down.
I
for
mean,
later.
you can approach it in that way, right? You can approach anything with a sort of sense of
I'm just gonna let
consciousness
these
and
kids be what they are.
Yeah,
Not gonna put any
creativity.
financial burden on them. And
I'm not gonna expect that they're gonna be a financial rich, right? Like that they're gonna support me. And no expectation. Anyway, so I wrote this book. I was gonna write the second one. I sort of was beating my head against the wall for like 7 months, like trying to get back into this flow.
Oh dang!
And I finally had to sit down
Got
and
a
be like,
block.
yeah, this isn't working. This isn't whatever this plan that I had. It's not happening. So I had to let it go. And I worked on something. I'd made the tarot deck at that point. That's when I sort of switched into doing something else. And then, so our second son now is finally old enough to go into daycare.
Finally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, I love him.
How old is that? Like 3?
2.5.
Okay.
So that opened. So I was aware that coming up, there would be this time opening up for me, and I'd be like, okay, it's time. I'm gonna get back into it. I'm gonna get back into writing.
Yeah, it gets you some time to be excited about it, to think about
and
it.
kind of prep and kind of
Yeah.
outline and think about, okay, what am I going to work on? And I fully anticipating that I was going to write the second novel in this series. And the more I started outlining ideas and working on it and sort of revisiting the first book and thinking about, oh, well, I would change this and I would change this and I would change this. It sort of opened up and it sort of turned into this whole other thing. And I was like, this is more than I want to take on right now. This is a different thing. This is
a different book.
I mean, it would be rewriting. It wouldn't be writing the second book. It would be rewriting the first book.
Wow.
Which is like, I don't, and just like I was just checking in with myself and just how I was feeling about that. And I was like, I don't want to do that right now. For various reasons, I wanted to write a book under my own name, right? So I was going to re-release it under my own name. Get rid of the pen name, just sort of unify.
I always thought that I didn't know why you were doing that.
Well,
I wanted to understand. I was trying not to be judgy.
The
but
reason
also I was like, come on.
Now, in
Royce.
retrospect,
Royce is my friend. I don't know Simon.
in retrospect, the reason was that's protecting that book, that draft. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And so now that I'm ready to write under my own name, that can be its own thing that can go away.
Yeah.
And then
that can go away.
And then if I need to rework it or re-release it under my own, now that's ready. So Simon was just sort of shielding.
That'll be like the
that.
ugly first son that you keep in the attic.
Yeah.
And you feed fish heads once a week.
That's so disturbing. But yes.
Well, we're thinking of ideas and things as kids. Sorry, I made it
no,
sound like you had a kid.
No.
Sorry, yeah.
I mean, disturbing in the best way of it's so fun. So anyway, so it was like, okay, well, maybe instead what I should do is I should write another series as fast as I can.
Just get it out.
How fast can I write 3.5 books? Because for self-publishing, you want to have at least 3 books, and you want to have a novella, a shorter book
Oh, interesting.
to give away for free as an incentive to your
Entice
mailing
people,
list.
yeah.
So you say, hey, I've got this book, read it. You download it for free. It introduces the characters,
hooking
it
'em.
introduces the world, and then they're on your mailing list. And then as the books come out, they're ready to
like
buy.
a drug dealer giving them a taste.
First
for
one's free.
First one's free.
Exactly. Okay. Because you give away one book and hopefully you sell 3.
Yeah.
Right. That's the math. Or however long your series is, 6, 8,
13.
Yeah. That's
Wheel of Time.
That's a lot. That's a lot of work. Anyway, so thinking about that is like, okay, I just need to write something fast, not something like this other series. This Milagro series is really close and special to my heart. Okay. So I just need to write something. I just need to work on something else that I can move fast with, that I don't have to be precious with, that I don't have as much attachment or preconceived ideas about, just an idea that I can just bang out as quickly as possible. And so I went back to some of my previous idea, my place where I keep my ideas. And I was like, oh, I had this idea for a short story about a wizard's apprentice who gets replaced by an android.
Oh, okay.
It's sort of writing around these fears about AI, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they like, okay, like
And wizards.
and wizard
And
yeah,
magic.
yeah, exactly.
And the devil.
Yeah, and the devil. There is a demon. Yeah, and so I was like, oh, and so I sort of like started teasing out that idea and working on it, and then I had the idea of like, wouldn't it be funny to write this book about magic and technology using technology and magic?
So you put it in ChatGPT.
So I'm using AI tools and a tarot deck together
Oh, interesting.
to help me write this book.
Wow.
And so what that's doing also, so not only is it a thematic thing of like I'm bringing in these things, but it's also helping me achieve my goal of writing really fast.
Okay.
Okay, so because now anytime I'm stuck, I can go to one of these 2 tools. I can pull a card up from the deck, or I can go to my AI tool and generate some text depending on what I need. And I'm moving so fast. I'm just like 2 weeks in, and I'm generating word counts that I'm just, for how much time I'm spending on it is like I'm looking at my word count and being like, how did I write 3,000 words today? Like, it's just incredible. So it's a structural thing, like it's a funny thematic thing, but it's also like helping me achieve the goal of the project, which is let's write something as quickly as possible and to get it out. So it's been so cool and fun.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting process too. So,
yeah, that's something that also talks about in the book, is like just getting things out and letting them be what they're going to be.
Yeah.
And then something I just was listening to him talk about on a podcast was, and he was talking about critiquing music, or not critiquing, but like trying to work on a song with an artist. He would say like they would try to get into a space where he'd be like, okay, can we add or take away certain things and then see if we like it? He was comparing it to like a dish and being like, oh, we should add more salt to that. And then you try it and you're like, oh, that was too much salt. So then you take it out. So you're constantly experimenting on this thing to see what you like.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know. Yeah. Does that apply as well with the writing stuff? Because it's like,
well, right,
you can't just add more of this character, right?
I mean, you could. Right now, I'm in the generative phase. I'm just writing the first draft. I'm trying to get it all down.
Yeah.
So
then you start
that kind of stuff is going to come in my second draft, where I'm like, okay, let's see what I have. What do we need more of?
Right.
What do we need less of? But yeah, I'll be getting there really soon.
I was thinking about that with joke writing as well, as like, like I have this joke about going to the gym and working out, and I was trying to do too much about like bro-y stuff, talking about protein powder and how I'm going to be an influencer and selling that. It's like, okay, you gotta get rid of some of that. That's not hitting with anybody, But then also just talking about being true to yourself. Like one of the hardest parts of being an artist is like knowing how you feel and being true to that, despite whether people like it or not.
Yeah.
That's another layer. It's like you want to write something that people like.
Yes.
Or like for me, I want to write a joke or say jokes that people will like.
Yeah.
So not, if that's something I find funny, but no one's laughing with it, I'll be very more inclined to stop saying it that way, even though I don't find it funny the other way or a different way.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, with comedy, right, you've got that like very in the room feedback.
Yeah.
Right. That's like very, if nobody's laughing, you've sort of got other problems, right? Like you need to kind of get everybody. It's okay if not everybody laughs at every
communication issue.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you got to you got to have
the rhythm and those laugh points.
Yeah. But I think that there's a really interesting thing of like being able to decide when you get feedback of like,
does this feel true to me?
Does that feel true to me? Is that a change that that I think I want to make, or
Yeah.
do I stand by what I've done?
Yeah, that would be the hardest part, is being an artist that, like, I'm being the truest artist to myself, but no one likes it. Like, could you do that? Could you be the guy who's just like, I'm going to go up there and do my thing, and if no one likes it, I still find it funny. Like, that would be, I mean, that's like a pure artist, right, then? Because you're being...
I mean, yeah, I mean, if nobody was responding to it, I would have questions. I would want, like, feedback. And if, like, there was some sort of consistent feedback, I would maybe be able to, like, internalize that. And if I wanted to change, if it was something like, yeah, I want to put more energy into this to make it something worthwhile. Otherwise, you just say, well, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking a lot there.
No worries at all. No worries at all.
Just being honest to yourself, I think, is the hardest part. Knowing that something ring true with you, and then sticking to that.
Yeah. Or like learning to trust that. Yeah. And then, but then also learning like when it's a tricky thing, learning when to, like, when you're just indulging yourself, right? Like, because I think those feel really similar. They're like, this feels good. This feels good.
I even like the hand motion. You're like, I gotta cut through this. I gotta fucking cut the fat. They call it cutting the fat a lot with the jokes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
cut the fat.
Yeah, get down to the
Like, what would be an example of that with the writing? Like, you're just indulging in, like, describing something too much.
I don't. Well, I definitely don't have that problem
in the Stephen King's books. It's like, wow, did you really have to describe her breasts for 3 pages, dude?
Right. Yeah.
Although I would say longer.
Write him a letter. I think.
You could really expand your sex scenes, bro.
The majority of the internet would disagree with you. Well, maybe not. I don't know. It's just the groups that I see.
I'm just being true to myself.
We want more of that.
More cocaine-fueled sex scenes. Sorry, I'm just joking. The amount of cocaine-fueled sex scenes in Stephen King's books are fine for me.
It's actually the perfectly appropriate amount.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question? What was
talking about being true to yourself?
True to yourself. Yeah. I mean, sometimes when I've gotten feedback on my work, I can tell. Like, it actually tells you more about the person than it does about the work.
Yes, I think so too.
Like, I had a comment once where like, this female protagonist needs a father figure.
Oh,
and I was like, really? That's an interesting thing for you to say.
Joanna. No, I just did a pot with her. So
I listened to that. That was a great one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, okay,
well, I saw that it was Joe, and I was like, oh, I want to catch up with Joe. I want to see. I want to know what Joe.
We'll have to do one for us because you're the first episode of Left Hand Right Brain.
Oh, okay.
But that'll be a year from now, basically.
Oh, okay, because that was okay.
Yeah, because I started at Left Hand Right Brain a year from now.
Well, we'll have to.
Yeah, we'll have to do
it. We'll have to schedule that. Okay,
right now.
Yeah, no, it's actually really interesting how often, critiques tell you more about the person.
Yeah, that is funny.
Than the actual critique. Yeah, it's like,
this woman needs a father figure.
I'm like,
all right.
I don't think she does. I think she's perfectly capable.
Well, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting that you're fighting that. Let's get into your relationship with your father.
We don't have time for
all
that.
my characters have daddy issues, just so
Yeah. And so, I mean, that is something too. I think that's something that some writers have fear over, of like, oh, if I write this thing, are people going to, like, see into, like, my depths? Are they going to be able to, like, see?
But you're also exposing yourself, so you
are. I mean, there is some vulnerability, but unless you're, like, writing, like, a direct memoir, like, whatever people are going to think or see, like, maybe they can see stuff and they can be like, oh,
yeah. Once it's out there, people are gonna read in whatever they want.
It's just sort of like whatever. But then that can also be helpful for you if they're like, oh, actually, I do write about this a lot. Like, is there something I'm trying to, like,
art can be a form of therapy in a way, but I don't think it should be the only therapy.
I think that is really good advice. It can be therapy, but just not by itself, please.
Yeah, I mean, people are constantly like, oh, I get on stage and that's my therapy. Comedy's my therapy. And it's like, no, that
sounds really unhealthy.
Avoiding therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like there's nobody you like to do that because there's nobody holding you accountable.
Wow. No, I think that's very true. But yeah. Any other big takeaways you like from the book?
So, like, the thing that I really respond, he's talking about process. And in particular, I mean, it's his process, but he talks about, like, seeds, right? Like, you have, like, this field of seeds and, like, all these little baby ideas. and then you like choose to like cultivate a few of them, experiment with a few of them, and then like hone in one. That like really resonated with me because that's like how it feels like for me, of like having like all these, like there's just like when I was working on this book, like, okay, I'm not going to work on this one. Let me go back to my ideas. What's here in this field of ideas that I can cultivate? And then the thing, it's sort of like when the process thing with the AI came in, it all sort of crystallized and it exploded. Now I'm like still on this wave of this explosion of like,
I think that's an important thing to follow too. That excitement, that the thing that
because it doesn't last. So you have to use it for, because it's not gonna.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're gonna be neck deep and you're gonna be like, oh, I gotta keep going. So you gotta use the excitement while you can because it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, hopefully the momentum and the discipline.
Hopefully the momentum gets you far enough where you're like, then you're like, okay, well I've gotten this far. Might as well keep slogging.
Yeah.
That's my process. I was just actually listening to a podcast where they were talking about this exact thing for writers. This, starting energy, middle energy, and finishing energy. And like people have different blocks at different ones, but like the way they were talking about, like, oh yeah, that feels like totally like me. It's like really easy, exciting to start something.
Yeah.
It's a huge slog in the middle, and then as you finish, you're getting to the end. You're like, all right, let's wrap this up and get on to the next thing. It was really exciting, and just knowing yourself, because some people get stuck at the beginning, or some people get stuck at the end. They have hangups about like, and they like try to tinker in perfection, or they're like, oh, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go. Like, just knowing like yourself and like where you need to like work around your blocks to get into the different things. It was really
he talks about deadlines being helpful for that, for like you just got to get something out at a certain point. Well, like not putting that so much on the creative part, but like once something, things do get, pieces of art do get turned into, other things, that things that make money, things that you have to put out for certain things. So, putting, at a certain point you do have to like let your baby out into the world, kind of a thing.
You just have to, and that's kind of been the thought, because I was talking about with the first series that I was working on, that first book, like thinking about totally reworking it, and now I'm in this process of like being not and just kind of moving, and it's like, well, maybe it would be okay for that book just to be as it is and re-release it under my name, and then just continue the series from there rather than trying to rework the whole thing. So we'll see where I end up when it's finally time to do that, and whenever I get back.
And authors do that fairly consistently or fairly often.
So, you just don't know.
Yeah, I did listen to something where they were comparing this book to a more of a fortune cookie than like a how-to.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
manual.
It is very.
It's not like the War of Art, the Stephen Pressfield one that has like concrete things.
It's more of just like, here's a bunch of ideas. They're sort of like loosely arranged, which I think for creative people is really great. Like you could also just like totally just like randomly open up and just like use that as like your fortune.
Yeah, go ahead and read. You want to read something from that page you just opened up to?
Success.
Hell yeah.
How shall we measure success?
Goddamn, this is hard.
Success has nothing to do with variables outside yourself.
Yeah, looking inward for that success.
Yeah. So like thinking about like, popular success is a poor barometer of work and worth. So like looking for that external validation, right? Like, and as that not being a good barometer, as he says, for the work. The most important thing is how we feel about it. That's what he's saying. But then of course also taking in that,
the feedback,
right? You don't want to just like,
sometimes I think stand-up comedy is the worst thing to do for like an artist, because it's all like, you have an idea, you go do it, that, and you're getting feedback, and you're totally like, you could chop it up, depending on how what the response from the audience is, or trying to fit it into like whatever ego-driven thing you're trying to do on stage is. And it's like, it's all beholden to what outside validation. Do they find it funny or not? I mean, that's what the value is in whether it's funny or not.
I mean, there's a reason I don't do stand-up comedy. Like, there are multiple reasons.
But you did improv for a long time.
I did improv, but I think, I know we've talked about this before, like improvisers are given like so much grace. Because there's a totally different energy. Like a stand-up audience is coming in with like arms crossed, being like, make me laugh. And that's improv. An improv audience is coming in being like, oh, we don't know.
We'll see.
Like, we'll see. Right. And like, we're sort of, there's a little bit more level playing field. Like, we're discovering it. Right. And we're like, the audience is much more generous, I think, in my experience, has been, because they know we're just making it up,
Right.
and stuff. Sometimes it's not going to hit. It's not going to work. And we just move on to something else.
Yeah.
There's sort of that understanding.
Yeah, the internal success, something I've been thinking. I had a couple episodes back. I had a guy, Samuk, Telgelkar, I think was his last name. It was on, and he asked me, he's like, "What do you want out of comedy?" And I was like, "Fame and fortune, obviously." Kind of jokey, but also, that's the thing. Yeah. And he's like, "Yeah, you think you'd be happy?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, most people say it doesn't bring you happiness, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, I need to experience it for myself.
I need to find out for myself."
Yeah, kind of a thing. Or like I was saying, like, we're talking about cars, and I was like, "Oh, I thought the new Broncos look cool." And he's like, "Well, it's not gonna make you happy or fulfill you or whatever." I was like, I got to find out, But I've been trying to figure out like what does make me, what will success look like,
That's a tricky,
and
hard thing.
I think it's willing it down to just like not having to go to a day job right now.
Right. Yeah.
Like not having that would be very nice for me. But then trying to mold my life around that, would right now would have to be giving up a lot of things I find comfort in, just money spending habits that I have that I would have to really reel in.
Yeah.
That I don't want to, I guess, at this point. So it's like
you'd prefer not to.
Yeah.
You'd rather have the stuff.
Yeah.
Than you'd have this other thing.
I love stuff.
Have you'd rather have stuff than
the freedom, I guess.
Yeah.
The free time at this point.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know, man. Success for you? How did this?
I mean, I would love to be able, like you said, to not have to go work at a job. I would love to be able for my creative projects to sustain me. And this series that I'm working on right now is sort of my last effort at this.
Before you give it up and just get a factory job?
No. If it doesn't work out, I still have to do it because that's who I am.
Yeah.
I can't not do it.
It's just being away, how you move through the world.
It would just be about, okay, what can I do that doesn't get in the way of this, or how can I reorganize stuff so that, I mean, I don't even know what I would do.
Yeah.
Like you
haven't had a day job in like forever, right?
I have never. I was working
traditional day job. You worked at the library?
I worked. That was years ago. And then I had a retail job, and since then, I haven't. Like, it's all been creative stuff.
Yeah, way to go, bud.
Yeah,
it's a good run.
It's been great. It's been all. I mean, once you have kids, that starts to change the math.
Right. Yeah.
When you have a mortgage, that starts to change the math. Of like, I could get away with like making $20,000 a year when it was just me and my girlfriend, and now there are 4 of us, and
4 girlfriends.
No, no, thank God, that would be a mess.
You think you could do a poly thing? I just had a guest in here, and you saying he was poly.
I mad respect to I get it, and like they need support, and they need
I get it. Listen, I get it.
They need love and recognition and all that. I've done like a lot of deep internal investigation, and it's just like, I just don't think that's me.
That you could have multiple sexual partners at once.
I don't think so.
You've done lots of deep internal searching for that thing.
I mean, when
thought about it,
you're like, like you always are, as an artist, you're always challenging your assumptions, and you're like, and so you think about like, oh, well, I got married, and that's it, but could I have done, could there be some other arrangement where I might be happier if that opened up for me?
The first McKenna's hearing about this? Your wife? No, I'm just joking.
Maybe.
Just fucking her.
But then like the answer that came back was like, no, I don't, I think it's different with kids. I know people make it work with kids, but I don't know. There's something for me that I really enjoy about, it's the 4 of us.
The monogamy and
it's this, and it's the structure, and we're all together, and like it's our family, and it's really special and precious to me.
Yeah.
So like that. Yeah,
that's nice.
That's for me. That's me, and I understand that's not for everybody. And so go do your thing, and I'll do mine, and we're all good. Like, yeah.
I don't know how we got there now. Sorry.
Who knows what we're talking about? The Creative Act, A Way of Being
Yeah.
by Rick Rubin.
Yeah, interesting guy though. I mean, Rick Rubin himself. I feel
I had never heard of him. It sounds like
no?
he's a music producer.
Yeah, he's worked with a bunch of
like famous people. That must be so interesting. So music production is not something that I like know a lot about. But it's interesting. So it
the
seems
Beastie
to me. Oh, he looks
Boys,
like a kind of
Run
a guru.
DMC. Yeah, I mean he looks.
Yeah,
he's playing the part for sure. Public Enemy, LL Cool J. He's also produced like comedy albums.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. He's just like a weird, interesting guy that people latch onto. Like, what an interesting life.
For sure, to be like work with all these people but you're in the background, right? Like, who's sort of? I mean, I'm obviously now I've read his book and I've heard it, but like, that's so interesting to like work with creative people.
Yeah, but not being the person in front.
Yeah. I don't know if I could. I could maybe do that as part of my thing, like, because that's a really cool energy. But like, I would still have to work on my own things on the side, I think. But what were your takeaways from this? Is there anything that like,
being true to myself
leapt out at you, or like seems like challenging for you, or like
not putting the weight of my financial needs on these ideas, and just letting like an idea grow organically in a way. Like, I had that idea for the radio play, or the idea originally I was like, oh, it's a movie about the Casa Bonita being like a ley line
for
these intergalactic things, and and then I was like, oh well, I got
Denver Conspiracy,
and then I was like, oh well, a script, I've never really written a script specifically, and I'm always like more flowery with my descriptions than a screenplay calls for.
Oh, for sure.
So I was like, book, I've never done a book, that seems very daunting. Screenplay, I want to be a little more expressive than that. And then I was like, oh, the radio play. I got that, and I do all the radio stuff anyway.
You've
so
already got all the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, unfortunately, I was holding on to this to like, don't let it just become another back burner thing or like something that doesn't happen. Like really, I would like the idea of promising this idea, committing to this idea, helping it come into the world. But just fucking work stuff.
Yeah.
I switched companies and things like that. Just have a different schedule now. It's just all these things that just life has been getting in the way, and it has been put on the back burner.
Yeah.
And I have felt the fizzle of the idea in my mind. It does, I haven't been getting as excited about it anymore. Or like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this.
It could just be, and this is something that I found too. It could just be it's not time yet.
Yeah.
It could be like you put a little of the initial work. You've kind of got like the seed of it, right?
Yeah.
But there's like some other piece that you need that you don't have yet. And I found this happen so many times where like I go on, like I explore this project and I kind of get a new skill. And then I'm sort of done with that, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure what that was about. And then later I have this other idea, and I was like, oh, well, I already know how to do this. And like the other project was about acquiring the skill, and then it comes back around in a different way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
like the idea is like this thing that is kind of its own entity in a way.
Oh, for sure.
Like I was just talking to my last guest about that, but he was saying he thinks ideas come internally. Like you can open yourself up to being creative or whatever, but he seemed to be kind of against the idea of that. Ideas are just out there. And you have to open yourself up to them.
Yeah. So
anyway.
I think, I don't know. For me, I think it's really psychologically helpful to think of ideas as coming externally.
Yeah.
I think, like we were talking about pressure, right?
Yeah.
If I am like a disconnected, discrete individual in the universe, and like, okay, I'm going to be creative now, and I'm going to come up with something from inside me that seems like a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, it's like giving birth in a way. Like you're creating this life and this thing. And
whereas if I believe, and you don't even have to believe, right? You can just imagine strongly that they come from somewhere else and they come and visit you. I think that takes off so much pressure, right? And then it also like helps it be its own thing, right? And then also it can be like, I think you've got the wrong guy. This one's not for me.
Yeah.
but then sometimes it all kind of comes together, and the idea comes, and then the tools come, and you're like, all right, let's do this. All right, I will make this happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it's also like a belief system as well. You know, like I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about
People
this,
get hung up on that.
looking for
Yeah.
some kind of, because I was raised Catholic. You know, I still
Mhm.
do believe in God in a way. You know,
Mhm.
because when I feel like I'm in trouble or whatever, I'm looking for. You know, I like
only the bad parts, only
well,
like
you
the
know,
punitive,
when I'm
punishing
going
parts.
through
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
some kind of extreme thing.
Yeah.
You know, like
It's a test.
yeah, there was this kid I used to teach karate to when I was really young. He passed away, so I went to the funeral and stuff. So I've just been thinking more, not just that, but you know,
Mhm.
things that happen in life
Sure.
that you're like, you know, higher power stuff.
Yeah.
And I do find a lot of comfort in that.
Mhm.
And I do think part of me's looking for
Yeah.
something to fill the spiritual God
Mhm.
hole inside
Yeah.
of me.
Yeah.
Because you know, I've rejected Catholicism or like the
Mhm.
organized religion thing so
Yeah.
hard that this kind is a nice. It feels nice, you know, because it doesn't feel satanic like tarot or you know, witchcraft. It's just, you know, I'm just fucking with you.
I
You
know.
know,
I know. I can
but,
take it.
but you know, it's nice, and I like that,
Yeah.
and yeah, it brings me comfort. I find it. I don't know. I like it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I must resonate with me on some point or on some level because I wouldn't because you know I wouldn't have connected with it so much if I
Yeah.
didn't feel it is true or was true.
Yeah. Well, you might really get a lot out of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
Yeah, she gives you like tasks to do.
Yeah,
right?
it's like it's week by week. You're writing every day, whether you're a writer or not. It's just part of
Yeah,
you
do like morning pages.
Yeah, morning pages, absolutely. But she talks a lot about, and she calls it God, and then but she turns it into an acronym for people who have a problem with that word. She calls it good orderly direction. And it's thinking about like, yeah, there's this source, there's this massive creative source that you can connect to, and things can like come through. And if you are aligned, if you got everything sorted and you've got your blocks, and then that it will just come through you. And I think that's super helpful. And it was super helpful for me, for her to kind of like do this neat little trick, little workaround for me to get over the word. And yeah, I mean, it was transformative for me, her book.
Yeah, and something I also connected with is that, you know, like you can never run out of ideas because it's infinite. Like these things are always out there, always coming. You know, like they describe energy. You know, like always moving and things like that. So that's also helpful because you're relieving this pressure of like I need.
What if
I'm
I run
too
out?
tired? Or don't have enough or whatever. Yeah, I like this idea of opening yourself up to like to being a conduit for these things.
Yeah,
I remember our mutual friend Emily Zeke talking about like I'm a vessel.
Sure.
I'm a vessel for comedy.
Yeah,
like opening myself to be a vessel for comedy. I like that a lot.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you're just being funny as opposed to like
instead of I am funny, right?
Yeah,
I open myself to allow comedy with a capital C to come out through me. I just got to get out of the way.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, but that's tricky with those stand-up comedians because the ego is a big part of that. It's a huge because it's all based around this personality, this persona, right?
And like this idea of I just had a guy on named Mo Alexander, and he was talking about he doesn't like the big Austin comedy boom because those comedians are all kind of like roasty, or just like they put you down, or like in a way like the way they're roasting or whatever is just like it's not like a positive feel good thing. It's like a lot of making fun. It just doesn't. Thing. Yeah, it just like feels more mean spirited. That
would be really hard.
Something else or other forms of comedy.
Yeah,
and or just other ways other people are being, and like that's a big ego thing. You know, I feel like that's ego in a bad way.
Yeah, for sure.
Versus so yeah, that's hard to get away from. And then I was listening to something and they're talking about like people are going to worship something. Like we as human beings want to worship. Like we're always looking for meaning, and we're putting meaning on things, and therefore like the idea of like God. Every culture has a religion. Every culture has like a God figure. So we're looking. He thinks that's like a universal thing.
Yeah.
We're looking for meaning. We put meaning in God. So we're always looking to worship and find meaning and stuff. So if you don't have a higher power that like a whatever that is for you, you're going to start worshiping material things. Which
well, that's what's
he
being
frames as
offered.
being-
That's what's being offered,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
As
yeah.
like,
So we're all looking to worship something. Like
Yeah.
mine is money, sugar. I'm looking for these
yeah,
things.
the quick
Oh yeah,
thing,
I love
yeah.
it. I got excited about spending money like as we were talking about it. So I think there's something there.
Yeah,
Something to
maybe like
explore.
that's something to work through. Yeah,
Or
for
I'll
sure.
just go to Target.
The more things I buy, it makes it go away. It's quiet.
It makes it feel good.
No, I mean, yes. I mean,
Do you think we're all looking to worship something?
I don't know if I would. Worship is a tricky word for me. I don't know if I would use that word, but it's clear to me that, I mean, obviously, right. If you look at anthropologically, if you look at the history of human cultures, right, there's some sort of belief. What I think is interesting is the different ways that figure gets structured. Because sometimes it's very disparate, right? Sometimes it resides in nature, right? All living things are animate, and like we can have different relationships to them, like you find in native cultures, right? Sometimes there's like multiple entities, right? We look at polytheistic religions like the ancient Greeks, or we look at Hinduism, right? There's like, there might be some sort of hierarchy. We might say, oh, this is the top god, but really there's all these different forces at play
Right.
that we can appeal to, right? And they all have their relationships, and and then I think where things get really weird is the Abrahamic religions, right? That have said, oh, actually, there's one God, he's male,
Yeah.
and he's mad at you. I think that starts to become, I think
that's when it's true. That's when you're starting to feel the real wrath.
No, I was going to say, I think that's when we're sort of going beyond psychologically helpful and now starting it into psychologically harmful.
Like controlling. That's more of
right,
like
because what's happened is the power structures, the religions, the organized, as we've talked about, and the priest castes, whatever that looks like, are now using that idea to manipulate and control.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where this idea of God is always watching you. He knows when you do bad, so you always have to be good, and he knows, and he's watching you, and I will hit you too, so what, like
yeah.
Like it's how
else will you learn?
Yeah, exactly. It's that control thing, right? And I think that, so like we have to, like in the West, especially those of us who have come up through those, like we have to like undo and take that away out of that, of like, first of all, okay, let's take away the masculinity. Okay, let's take that out.
Ooh.
There's no gender to whatever this force is.
Oh, to God. I thought you were saying.
I mean, yeah, there's no gender anyway. Like, but that's a different conversation. Yeah, and like it's not. It's an only positive thing, right? It's not going to punish you. It's not going to hurt you. That you can't. There's no such thing as sin. You can't hurt it. You can't disconnect. There's nothing that you can do to disconnect yourself from it. It's always there. Okay.
Yeah.
You can be in alignment with it.
Uh-huh.
You can be out of alignment with it, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as you're ready, it's there. It's going to be there, and it's gonna be a positive force for you.
Much like you with fatherhood. For your kids, you're there if they want to align with you. If not, you're gonna punish them.
No, we don't. We don't do discipline.
Yeah, sorry, no discipline at all. No discipline.
No discipline
ever. Like, hey, don't don't scratch that guy.
I mean, that's not. So like when I'm saying discipline is like, hey, you did this, and your punishment is this.
Okay.
Like that. There's redirection. There's like, hey, we don't do that.
Uh-huh.
Hey, it looks like you want to hit. Let's like redirect that.
Put these boxing.
But it's not, hey, you hit your brother. Now you have to go. Your punishment is you have to be removed from the. It's like, hey, you hit your brother. Like you need to apologize. Like we need to repair. Right. I'm not going to punish you.
You don't hit him back. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I know you would never.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I know. Hitting kids, so funny.
Well.
Anyway, we got off on a thing.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway,
aligning yourself with this
whatever force. This force. Yeah. I think, but then the thing that I can't thing I'm trying to work around is like, does it have a mind? Like God, or because we have a mind and we perceive that there's like this field, I call it the undifferentiated field, right? Is our perception that God is an entity, a thinking entity, just a reflection of our own mind, or is there some other structure is it structured in such a way that we just can't even comprehend because we have limited sensory capacity. Yeah. Like, and I think, and I sort of, I guess I just come around, it always comes back to this, like, well, we just don't know enough. And anybody who tells you that they know what the answer is probably trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
Right. Or trying to get you to behave in a certain way for their benefit. Right. Like, we just don't know. So like, just like live in the mystery and like, I don't know.
Yeah. I've been listening to this book called Soul Boom.
Ooh.
And it's about like connecting to a higher power, like finding God thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the guy who played Dwight Schrute.
Oh yeah, I knew. I had sort of heard
why we need a spiritual revolution.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he was talking about like believing in something.
Baha'i?
Yes.
Okay.
Baha'i, which is an interesting.
It is. Yeah.
Interesting faith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was just he's talking about he liked the idea of this Native American idea of, I can't remember exactly the right word, but it's like it's just this great mystery. You know, like it's like that's something he's connected with a lot. You know, because when I think of God, I mean, my first go to is old guy in the sky,
right?
Zeus looking guy.
Yeah,
but I mean, I know that's not. I mean, it's a unknowable thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, guess I could be that, but probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah, not.
Anybody who tells you is probably an old white guy.
Yeah.
God looks like me, right?
Right. I mean, and if that's the way we want, I mean, if God came to us and that's what we wanted to see, if that's what we expected to see, would that be what?
That's the interesting, these people who have these near-death experiences, right, always see figures that come from their own religious understanding. So like Christians see Jesus and Hindus see Shiva or Vishnu, and like so it's like there's a way in which our mind is shaping the experience, the spiritual experiences that we have,
the way we're perceiving.
Yeah. And so like on one end, like obviously it's helpful to have like thousands of years of tradition of like wise people saying like, here's some ideas that like here's some like
that
structures
resonate,
and, that hold on to, but like I think at this point, like it's on us as individuals to kind of sift through all that and like, be like, okay, what actually does resonate and what is a toxic power structure? Like, this is hard, which is hard. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. We got a lot of other stuff to do. Like we got to get to our job. We got to raise, and like, and you want me to sort through, thousands of years of wisdom traditions to try to figure out what my sense of meaning and purpose is in a, vast universe. Is like, I don't know if I have time.
Yeah. Well, maybe our next book club one could be the Soul Boom.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll try to. It sounds interesting, but I'm always a little hesitant. Spiritual revolution. That sounds great, but then like whenever they're coming from like a really specific background, like that, in my experience, that always turns into like, why we need a spiritual revolution, which means everyone comes and joins the faith that I'm already a part of.
He hasn't promoted that specifically. He talks about it, but he talks about like as a young man, he's just looking for answers. So he explored a bunch of different religions. And he also, did the classic, hero's journey where he rejected, the old stuff. And, but he ended up coming back to the Baha'i religion, I think, at the end.
Yeah.
But,
well, it's syncretic, right? It's taking pieces from a lot of different faiths and sort of putting them all together. But just my experience, maybe I shouldn't say anything. Like, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to say a judgy thing.
You think he's just a commercial for Baha'i?
No, I mean, I don't. I'm just skeptical of those kinds of structures.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like they tend to be self-perpetuating, and so like, I want to read his book. I think we can, if you want to do that for our next book club. I'm happy to read his book, and make my own judgment and opinion. But like,
so I guess I don't know. How would you? I get it. You're skeptical, which is.
I think you have to. I think you like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to have both.
Sure.
Like it's that. Yeah. Yeah. Because like obviously, I believe in lots of like weird, bizarre things, but I'm also a skeptic of my own. Like I'll hold them loosely enough to be like, yeah, I know I could be just like totally off my rocker here. Like,
sure.
Like you have to be able to hold yourself, accountable and be like, hold yourself in check. Be like, are we really?
Hold yourself in check.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
so how would you rate this book? I mean, would you recommend it to somebody?
I was thinking about this on the way over. I read this is not the only book about creativity that I have read. I would say if you haven't read a book about creativity, I would recommend this one.
Because it's a good
one. It's very easy to read. It's very digestible. It's like, if you're looking for like specific like structure, like how to's, I don't think this is the book for you because it's pretty loose. But if you're already a creative person and you're sort of loose anyway, like you'll probably jive with it. If you've already read books on creativity, I don't know if this added anything that I didn't already know.
Yeah.
But that's just part of the topic, right? There's only so much we can say about this, and if you've already read 3 books on it, like I don't know that there's any more profound, but who's to say? It did sort of like subtly work on me as I read through it. So maybe not. Maybe it seemed obvious at the time. It's like, oh yeah, but maybe it was working more than I expected. So yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah,
for sure.
How should we rate it? Like a 5 stars? If we had to,
I would probably give 4 stars.
Yeah,
if I
5 for me.
Oh, okay.
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah.
The audiobook experience is really cool. He reads it. His voice is very soothing.
Ooh.
And then there's like a gong thing in between chapters, which is nice. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds about right. That tracks. Tracks. Okay.
Yeah, it was a very nice listening experience, I thought. So the audiobook, definitely 5 out of 5.
That sounds like its own experience even.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. That's how I do it. I listen to the audio,
Cool.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for coming down, for talking. Do you have anything? Yeah, anything else you want to say about it that you didn't get a chance to, or
we cut it. We covered it.
Yeah,
we hit it. So
all right. Anything people can find you on? You want people to?
You can find me at ragamancers.com. That's kind of where all of my creative projects are. You can go to Linktree. That's linktr.ee/Roeswood, ROES. That's got all my socials and stuff and all the links to all my stuff. But Ragamancers is kind of my hub right now, where all my creative projects all kind of point to. I'm trying to organize it. I got so much stuff everywhere. I'm just trying to organize it all and help my audiences find each other. And I don't know what I'm doing. But
yeah, you got the video.
Yeah. So I'm running a solo role-playing game podcast where I play role-playing games solo, and I've got videos out every week. So that's at Science Fantasy Awesome on YouTube. That's at SciFanAw. It's a horrible acronym, but yeah. So that's and then just writing. So I'll be doing updates about that on my blog. But that's what's going on right now. Yeah.
Well, let the guests sign us off however they see fit. I'll say Wakanda forever and be excellent to each other. So
yes, do good. Do some good work, people. Let's get out there. Do our best.
Do your best. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. See you next time.